Rafi's life is epitome of the daily struggles faced by many in Mumbai. His life is a constant hurdle, filled with the challenges of making ends meet and supporting his family's debt back in his village. He makes his living by taking candid photos of tourists at the gateway of India, earning a meager income that barely covers his expenses. Rafi's financial situation is further complicated by his responsibility to support his grandmother, who constantly nags him about getting married. On the other side of Mumbai's social divide is Malone, a young woman from an affluent family. Malone is a quiet and introverted character who is pushed by her family to pursue a degree in accounting. She is trapped in a world of privilege and academic pressure, where her dreams and desires have been overshadowed by her family's expectations. Her life is marked by a rigid daily routine of attending classes, studying, and preparing for exams. She feels suffocated by the expectations placed upon her by her parents, who dream of her achieving academic success and settling down in a respectable marriage. Opening sequences show Rafi at the gateway of India, taking pictures of a family while explaining his tagline about how the picture will remind them of the day when they look at it. We are introduced to a new character as the camera then pans towards Malone's father, a businessman, who is at lunch with his friend. During this, he comes across a billboard in honor of the highest-scoring CA students of India, and Malone is introduced. At first, she is shown to be an academic genius, but has severe emotional distress. This is evident when, in the next scene, her mother goes shopping for her and asks whether she should buy a pink dress or a yellow one. Malone shows no interest in the task at hand, basking in silence during the whole ordeal. The mother and daughters then proceed to take a ferry to the gateway of India, where Malone starts walking away from her mother and sister. In her frenzy, she runs into Rafi, who uses the same tagline to get her to take a photograph. He even lowers the price for her, as sign of courtesy. Malone, while completely uninterested, agrees. But just as Rafi is about to hand her a plastic cover for her photo, she turns around and leaves without paying for it. Rafi is visibly confused and somewhat sad. He fiddles with his camera, lost in his thoughts, when his friend waves at him from a distance to announce a new challenge. Apparently, his grandmother has been going around looking for suitable brides for him to marry back at their village. Rafi is shown to have no interest in marrying just yet. He has taken over the role of the breadwinner for his home, and perhaps may not be able to afford the expenses of a wife just yet. However, that changes swiftly when he later learns that his grandmother has taken a vow not to take her medicine. Not unless he marries, as she wants to see him do so while she is still breathing. Pushing the potential rumor aside, Rafi walks to a hawker for his usual kulfi. The hawker asks him again about his grandmother's motives, and Rafi sighs in exasperation. At first, the whole idea of his grandmother not taking her medicine does not bother Rafi. He considers it a sham, a feeble attempt at emotional blackmail. But as he comes to his chawl, a cramped place like a hostel where poor laborers live, almost everyone asks him if his grandmother is fine. In the tiny community, the news has spread like a wildfire. Later that night, while drinking with his friends, Rafi comes up with a solution to the problem at hand. But right at that moment, Zakir starts telling a story about Mr. Tiwari, a poor laborer who committed the same fan that is still there on the ceiling. A consequence for the love of his life getting married to someone else. When everyone falls asleep, Rafi takes his backpack and goes to the balcony of his koli, a room in a chawl, and starts writing a letter to his grandmother back at his village. In contrasting scenes, we observe Minali hard at work, studying in her room. She is the person in Rafi's mind as he scribbles on a piece of paper. In the letter, Rafi falsely explains how he has found a girl he loves, and plans to marry her. But when it is time to come up with a name for his imaginary lover, Rafi has trouble doing so. Right then, he hears an old song playing on a nearby radio, and comes up with the name Nori. He sends the letter to his village, and his grandmother starts taking her medicine again. So much for not giving in to feeble emotional manipulation. All the while, the real reason why Rafi does not want to marry just yet is revealed. His family has some debt, due to which they had to put the family house as collateral damage. Rafi promised himself not to marry unless he could buy it back, or clear every cent of debt due on his family's name. The next night, he tries to act tough in front of his friends. He claims that he outright refused his grandmother's demands, and told her that he would marry when he felt like it. The next morning, Rafi and his best friend are sitting on a beach, where Rafi tells his friend the whole truth about the situation. He states that his grandmother is coming over to Mumbai to meet her future granddaughter-in-law. Upon inquiring whose picture Rafi sent as Nori's, Rafi's best friend finds out that he sent a picture of Malone, the girl who didn't pay for her photo 2 days earlier. This is a risk, and it scares him to an extent. But he is adamant on doing so. Showing his grandma that there is already a girl in his life would relieve her from what she considers her duty to find a good wife for him. Rafi is visibly confused about how to make the meeting with his grandmother go through without any hurdles. He desperately starts looking for chances to run into Malone, so he can explain what the whole ordeal is. He also wants to ask her if she would meet his grandmother once, so that she can let Rafi live in peace. He starts going to Malone's classes and stands outside, waiting for a chance to talk to her. But to his surprise, Malone fails to show up there. In a surprising turn of events, it is revealed that she went to the Gateway of India to, in fact, meet Rafi to take another picture, because the earlier picture was confiscated by his teacher Mr. Mehta. But to her surprise, Rafi is not there. Nevertheless, she still gets another photo taken at the Gateway and comes back. The following day, the duo run into each other on a bus, and Rafi eyes Malone, but he is unable to muster enough courage to talk to her. That night, everyone back at the chawl starts inquiring Rafi about when his grandmother is arriving. This perplexes him even more, as he now has only one day to meet Malone and ask her if she will be a part in his lie. On the following day, Rafi and Malone share a bus ride, and when the woman next to Malone gets off, Rafi goes over and sits next to Malone. They go to a park, where Rafi explains everything about his grandmother and how he sent a picture of Malone to her. Malone is rendered speechless, but Rafi has more for her. He explains how he told his grandmother that Malone is the woman he loves. He explains that he will not blame Malone if she doesn't want to go through with it. After all, she is under no obligation to help a stranger, but doing so would be of great help to him. Before leaving, Malone asks for another copy of the photograph Rafi took back at the Gateway of India that day, and Rafi gives it to her. He leaves, hoping against hope that Malone will contemplate the decision. Rafi's grandmother arrives the next morning, and the first question she asks is about Nori. He explains that she has some work to do and is unable to show up. But then Malone calls Rafi to reveal that she has decided to meet his grandmother. Rafi has made an impression on her, and she wants a chance to meet again. This is so she can say thanks to him for giving her a memory she will cherish, referring to the photograph. Later that afternoon, Rafi picks up Malone from a bus stop in a taxi, and explains the context even more. He tells Malone about how he came up with the name Nori. Proceeding on, the pair tell each other about themselves a little bit so they can better understand each other. They meet Rafi's grandma at a hotel. His grandma is shown to be an old-school woman, with simple beliefs and morals. This is depicted when she says that the most educated person she knew was Rafi's uncle, her younger son, who studied and was a compounder. Therein, Malone starts pondering about how different village life and city life are from each other. She thinks about how village people still have those old values such as honesty, integrity, and looking out for one's own. Upon being asked about her parents, Malone lies and tells Rafi's grandmother that they passed away. This is when Grandma gifts Malone a pair of really old traditionally made anklets, and asks her to take care of them. She reveals that they were once hers, and that she has significant sentimental value attached to them. Outside the hotel, Rafi thanks Malone for being a part of all this, and explains that she doesn't have to return. He also asks her to keep the anklets, as they were gifted to her. However, Malone asks Rafi to meet her at the same time the next day, because she wants Rafi to take more photos of her at the Gateway. Perhaps this matchmaking situation may not be a hypothetical one at all. Back at her home, Malone sees her house help, Rampiari, wearing the same type of anklets as the grandma gifted her, and is fascinated. She asks her to sit, and Rampiari takes a seat on the floor. This is a moment when the class difference is starkly visible between Malone and Rampiari, someone who shares the same customs as Rafi and his grandmother. Malone asks Rampiari about village life, getting to know about the slow village life, and how different it is in contrast to the rapidly moving city life. Rampiari talks fondly about the freshness of the air, and the peaceful and tranquil atmosphere of the rural life, and expresses her wish to visit a village one day. To Rafi's surprise, Malone shows up the next day, as his grandma asked her to accompany them shopping the day prior. While shopping, Grandma starts talking about how Rafi handled all the expenses for both his sisters' weddings. The rural society is patriarchal, and one of the highest degrees of responsibility for men is to get their sisters married off without any hurdles or hardships. She then selects some clothes for Malone, as Malone is skeptical as to what to purchase for herself. Malone is shown to slowly be warming up towards Rafi and his grandma, and wanting to know what rural life is like. Little does she know, she has a surprise waiting for her back home. The surprise being her father's friend wanting her to marry his son, a successful entrepreneur traveling to the States for his master's in business administration. All of this happens without Malone's consent, and she is taken by such shock that she subconsciously agrees. Her family is delighted due to the fact that Malone will be marrying and going abroad. But Malone starts having second thoughts, and doubting if staying silent is really the best option. Meanwhile, Rafi's grandmother prods him to get his finances in order. The concept of a wife earning more than her husband is intimidating, and Rafi knows he will have to do something about it soon. Gradually, Malone starts having a liking towards the grandma-grandson duo, voluntarily hanging around them just to spend time with them. They go on a ferry ride together, where Grandma explains how she met Rafi's grandfather, and some other old village stories, fascinating Malone even more. To their surprise, Daddy asks the two how they met for the first time. This leaves the pair startled, because while they had prepared in case Daddy asked this question, Rafi is unable to remember his part. Malone saves the situation with her improv skills, as she used to be an actor during her school days. She narrates that they met one day when she came to the gateway to get a picture taken. Raffi took such a beautiful picture of her that she fell for him right then and there. The girl in that picture looked so much more vibrant, happy and alive than she was in real life. It is indeed a heartfelt account. The same night, it starts pouring. As there is no taxi available for hire, Malone asks Raffi to have tea together, to which he agrees. They go to a tea stall for tea and samosas. Earlier in the film, Raffi was shown eating a kulfi on the last day of the month. He provides an explanation pertaining to that ritual. This act of eating kulfi on the last day of the month is his way of saying thanks to his father and honoring him. When Raffi was little, his father used to do the same thing. It is his way in which he can connect to his father's values and remind himself to always have gratitude. Malone smiles, and Raffi then asks her out for a movie. While at the theater, Malone is startled by a rat, but the duo laugh it off. Raffi also thanks Malone and tells her that Daddy, his grandmother, will be leaving for his cousin's house soon, and that they don't have to meet. The next day on the gateway, Malone and Daddy eat some gola ganda off the street, which caused Malone to develop gastro issues. She has little experience eating street food, coming from a very sheltered background. Daddy and Raffi then go to visit some family, where Daddy expresses her frustration about Nori not showing up, because she is occupied preparing for her exams. Raffi manages to calm her down. As soon as Malone starts feeling better and has sufficient preparation done for her exams, the meetings resume, and this time Daddy takes the pair to a beach. This is where Bank, Raffi's best friend, takes a couple of photos of them standing on the beach, one with Raffi's hand on her shoulder, and one with them looking towards each other. Meanwhile, on the other side of the beach, Rampiari is watching all of this happen, and Malone manages to spot her in the corner of her eye. Back home, Malone's parents ask her to meet Chitin, the proposed fiancé. Malone agrees to a meeting and goes to the kitchen to confront Rampiari. Rampiari is getting ready to go to bed, laying out blankets on the kitchen floor. Minali quietly comes over and sits on the floor with her. She gets straight to the point, stating that Raffi is not her boyfriend. Rampiari reassures her that she knows Malone is more than capable of taking her own decisions and knowing what's best for herself. Rampiari assures her that she will keep whatever she saw at that beach to herself, and that Malone has nothing to worry about. She still wants the best for her, and hints that Chitin may not be the best match for her. Malone is relieved, and prepares to meet Chitin the following day. In their meeting they have a very generic conversation, in which Malone shows no interest, and is quickly fed up. But not wanting Chitin to feel bad, she just sits there and agrees with him, just to get the meeting done and over with. Her mind is elsewhere, and she somehow cannot understand why. At Nelasapara, an outskirt of Mumbai, Daddy and Raffi are shown attending a birthday party of one of Raffi's cousin's children. Meanwhile, Malone rejects Chitin. Her parents are distraught, because Chitin is the perfect groom, according to them. But eventually, Malone's father comes to the understanding that Chitin used to be overweight before, and it is only rational to have a fear that he might put on his old weight again, which is the reason his daughter rejected Chitin in the first place. Malone decides to go along with this assumption, just glad that this proposal is done and dusted. Malone and Raffi meet and talk about the birthday party, and Raffi starts investing in self-hygiene products and practicing grooming habits. A small fact shown earlier in the film which is necessary for further context is that Malone does not drink any cola. This is due to the fact that, back when she was a little girl, her grandfather used to buy her Campa Cola every day, and ever since her grandfather passed and Campa Cola went out of order, she decided not to drink cola anymore. She told Raffi this during the conversation they had, back when they went to get tea on the rainy day. Keeping this in mind, Raffi starts looking to see if any Campa Cola factory is still up and running. He starts looking for contractors, suppliers, and warehouses, but is unable to find a convincing enough lead. Soon, he is about to lose all hope of finding Campa Cola so that Malone can relive the nostalgia associated with the drink. Suddenly, he learns from a warehouse manager that a Parsi man named Mr. Sadabatawala has the formula for the drink. Because his wife used to be a huge fan, and he set up a small factory in his house so that his wife would always have sufficient supply of the beverage. Raffi asks for Mr. Sadabatawala's address and leaves in hope to find him. Meanwhile, Malone is walking down a road when Mr. Mehta, her co-teacher, cuts her off and starts insisting she join him for coffee. Raffi arrives on the spot to ask if everything is alright, but Mr. Mehta tries to defuse the situation and make Raffi go away, only to be surprised when Malone gets in the cab with Raffi and drives away. This throws him in a fit of rage, seeing Malone get in a car with what he perceives to be an illiterate, financially unsuccessful man. Daddy is shown to be somewhat upset with Raffi. When Raffi says that he's off to work, she just tells him to go. Daddy is also shown to have left for Nelasapara once more, to visit some relatives. Meanwhile, as Raffi and Malone get in the taxi, Raffi expresses his disgust over Malone's teacher harassing her in the street like that, and Malone is somewhat fulfilled to know he cares. She places her hand on his, which prompts Raffi to place his hand on hers, and they both smile and head to Raffi's Coley. There, the same song Nori is shown to be playing in the street, and Raffi is shown buying some fritters for the pair to eat in the rain. Inside, Malone finds pictures of herself stuffed under Raffi's pillows, showing that he is also somewhat attracted towards her. The two realize that they both share mutual feelings towards each other, despite being from two completely different walks of life, and meeting under the weirdest of circumstances. That night, Raffi is visited by the ghost of Mr. Tiwari, a laborer who committed in the same Coley he resides in. Tiwari's ghost states he used to love smoking biddy while he was alive. The duo go to the balcony to smoke a biddy, where Raffi asks the ghost of his understanding, and the encounters he had in life. The ghost provides humorous answers, and in the end, Raffi states that he intends to start his own business, a factory of Campa Cola. The following day, Daddy returns and explains that the reason she was upset with Raffi is because she knows Nori isn't who she's pretending to be. She saw the poster of her being one of the highest-scoring CA students, Malone Shah. Raffi can keep up this sham no longer, and decides to burst the bubble. He replies that all of this was to make Daddy happy, and tells her not to worry, because he will pay every cent of his father's debt back and get the family house back. Daddy scolds him, and asks him to let go of the past. If a man wants to continue forward, he must leave excess baggage from the past behind. Raffi goes to Mr. Sadabatawala's house to get a bottle of Campa Cola for Malone. Ironically, as if defying Daddy's wise words, the film goes to a flashback, back when the pair went to see a movie and a rat crawled over Malone's feet. According to Raffi's understanding, they laughed it off, but in reality, Malone gets up and leaves in the middle of the film, and finds a quiet spot to be alone. Raffi follows her, and they have a chat. Malone shows concern about Raffi missing his movie, but he tells her he already knows how the story ends. Like every story, the guy and girl would fall in love, but they would be torn apart by cultural factors, like the guy's meager occupation and questionable status. Every story ends in the same way, after all. As they leave the cinema together, the credits roll and the movie fades to black. As Raffi and Malone's relationship deepens, they find solace and understanding in each other's company. They share their dreams, fears, and aspirations, offering each other a glimpse of the life they could have, outside the limits of societal expectations.